Located on the banks of the scenic Connecticut River in East Haddam, Connecticut, Goodspeed Musicals is known around the world as the home of the American musical. Founded in 1963 in the magnificently restored Victorian Goodspeed Opera House, Goodspeed Musicals is an artistically thriving nonprofit institution that employs hundreds of people annually and nearly 100 year-round.
Goodspeed is a manufacturer of musicals. Now, what does that mean? It means that everything is done right here in East Haddam, Connecticut. We build the scenery, we paint the scenery, we rehearse the shows, we sew the costumes, and eventually we put it right up on the stage. We build everything new here in Connecticut.
The process of creating a Goodspeed musical begins a year or more before the show opens. It starts with Goodspeed's artistic staff, who work together to choose a season of musicals for the main stage at the Goodspeed Opera House.
We choose each season with a lot of care and a lot of time, weighing the various artistic elements of the piece and how it affects us personally, how we feel about a piece. And at the same time, what we try to do are musicals that no other theater is doing. We do more of discoveries, musicals that are forgotten, and musicals that we can bring something to. Sometimes directors come to us with a project. Sometimes we think that they're just right for the project, and we go to them. We have a list, the same way we have a list of about 30 musicals that we're considering. We add to it every year. We have a list of maybe a dozen directors that we want to work with and that we think might be right for the various projects that we're choosing.
Once the director is decided, the choreographer and designers for sets, lights, and costumes are hired. Together with Goodspeed's producing staff and resident music director, they form the creative team for each production.
The director acts as kind of a conductor, like an orchestra has a conductor. And they work with the actors, the casting people, the technicians, the designers to put everything together for a whole. He or she has the vision in which everyone serves.
So about a year before rehearsals would begin, we can start working on pre-production with, I would work with the director, the choreographer. We'd start isolating which songs we want to use, how we want to change those songs, start thinking about dance arrangements, that sort of thing. So by the time we're in rehearsal, all of that has to be finished so that we can give that information right to the actors. Although some of it still changes while we're in the rehearsal process. And the orchestrations are usually not done until the day they need to be on the stands.
So now it's time to cast the show. Goodspeed holds between 5 and 8 days of auditions in New York City for each production that we do. We see upwards of 700 people to cast a show that may have between 20 and 25 cast members on stage. We're generally looking at very high caliber performers, Broadway veterans who can sing, dance, and act, and are right for the show that we're casting.
And the casting process is a whole nother chapter, seeing people and seeing how, how you hear the play and how those actors come into the audition room and what they bring to the table, and putting together that right combination of people is critical. There's a joke that says, 90% of directing is casting, and I think it's true actually, because we don't want to tell actors what to do. We want to get the best actors for the role and then guide them to that whole so it all works together.
Early in the process, the set, lights, and costume designers create designs for the show in consultation with the director. These designs are then given to the Goodspeed's expert production staff. The creative team and production staff meet regularly to discuss and review the craftsman's process toward bringing them to life. The production staff tries to remain flexible to change the designs to meet unforeseen challenges that arise during the rehearsal process.
The challenge at the Goodspeed is to make a very small space appear much larger than it is. And we use a lot of tricks to make that happen. We use perspective, shifting scale. In other words, we may take things that are closer to the audience and make them a little larger than they normally would appear. Things that are further away from the audience may be scaled down a bit so they're a little smaller than they normally would appear, and the result is that the space looks larger than it actually is.
I really think lighting works like music. It enters your mind in a non-rational way, the same way music does when you're experiencing a show. It opens emotional doors that you're not even aware of being opened. just by the way you visualize it. The long rhythms, short rhythms of a piece, the lighting can really sort of affect your perception of what's emotionally going on stage.
So basically what I do as a costume designer is through costumes I help tell the story, and characters always comes first. So basically every part along the process won't be about making or designing a pretty clothes, but to design the character and through what they're wearing. So in a nutshell, the whole process starts with research. After the research, we design the show, we swatch the whole show. The show is first done, or the costumes are built in a mock-up fabric. Then we have fittings, second fittings in real fabric, and then the clothes is complete, is done. And after that, sometimes it goes to distressers or specialty painters, etc.
6 weeks prior to opening, the staff and creative team are in full swing to get ready for opening night. Goodspeed's community of staff, actors, and artists live and work on the Goodspeed campus in East Haddam, Connecticut, where Goodspeed owns and maintains over a dozen houses and 80 bedrooms.
Each Goodspeed production rehearses for 4 weeks in our rehearsal studio in East Haddam. We start with a read-through, move on to music rehearsals, which can take several days. Then we start staging the show, learning blocking, learning the dance numbers. In about the 3rd week of rehearsal, they move on to run-throughs when they've got the whole show on its feet and they're ready to run through the show. And at the end of the 4th week, we move into the theater for technical rehearsals.
Choreography can be used in a number of ways within a musical. One is to push the story forward, meaning progressing the plot, or it can be used to enhance a moment that is created by the director within a scene itself. It also creates, it moves in stages from dialogue into the heightened emotion becoming a song, into that emotion becoming even more heightened into movement. And that expands, of course, into huge dance numbers and things of that nature. It also can be used to express one emotion amongst a lot of people, or a lot of different emotions happening simultaneously amongst a lot of people.
I try to imagine what the essence of the character is and what his spine is, what drives the character. You know, I think there are two separate ideas with acting. One is sort of that emotional connection, and the other is very mathematical, going through scenes and understanding where your beats are and what your actions are for each beat.
Civilized, resolved. We shall live through this together, Excalibur. They, you, and I.
Meanwhile, the Goodspeed production shops are hard at work to have the set and props built and painted in time for tech rehearsals. Behind each production is a wealth of technical and engineering expertise. The Goodspeed scene shop and paint shops are some of the largest and best equipped in the country. From the set designer's drawings, blueprints are created, and numerous craftsmen and women build, weld, and paint all of the scenery and props which are custom for each show.
To put a show into this theater, we take 1 week from taking the last show out to putting the next show in. The actors arrive and walk through the show in a very slow stage-by-stage process so that they can get the focusing of the lights, understand their traffic patterns backstage, make sure that the sound levels are correct, the orchestra is added, and usually the night before our first public performance, they actually get to go through the whole show from top to bottom without stopping to get a sense of the flow of the show.
Opening night really begins at 5 o'clock in the afternoon when we stop rehearsing. And a huge crew comes into the theater to dismantle all of the technical apparatus that has been used to put the show together, and to clean the theater, clean the bathrooms, get the dressing rooms ready for the actors to come back at 7 o'clock for an 8 o'clock curtain. In 2 hours' time, there is such excitement and such work in this theater that you would think that we were a beehive. Well, we are a beehive of great activity, all centered on an 8 o'clock downbeat from the conductor.
There's a very special energy about opening night that you can't explain. Everyone's a little nervous, everyone's a little excited, so it brings an edge. It's always a very, very exciting night for those of us who create the show as well as for the audience, because they're there for the birth of the show.
Opening night at Goodspeed is quite an event. There are times when we've not been through the show completely from beginning to end, and we're not sure how we're going to make it. It's that first time when the audience is added to the entire picture, and the adrenaline and the activity that happens on opening, it is truly magic. We often look at each other at the end of the performance and say, how did we do that again? But it's the magic of theater, and there's nothing like it.
Each Goodspeed musical runs for over 100 performances with actors, musicians, and dozens of backstage crew, wardrobe and wig assistants, stage manager, house manager, and ushers working together for a new audience every night. And after 12 weeks, it all starts over again for the next production.